Have you ever wondered what it's like to work in law enforcement? Here on Behind the Star, we share stories about the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Central Florida's largest law enforcement agency. From forensics to dispatch to the deputies on patrol, we'll talk to the brave men and women who protect our community. This is Behind the Star, the official podcast of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Welcome to Behind the Star, the official podcast of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. My name is Jon Busdeker, your host here at Behind the Star. I got a doozy today because a few weeks ago I went out with this one of these folks that I have as a guest here on Behind the Star. We went out, we were doing traffic, we were pulling people over, but now I got them here. I say here, we're at Sector 4 here at the Sheriff's Office, which is kind of near the jail if you're familiar with Orange County. I'm here with Sergeant Dave McDaniels and Lieutenant Mark Conner. Welcome to Behind the Star.
Good morning, John.
You sound excited. You sound very excited.
Well, I got you. I got to follow you. I mean, you introduced us like that, and so now I got to bring my game up.
There you go. And Sergeant McDaniels, excited to have you.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. So how about I start it off? I'll ask you some questions here. Let's start off. We're here at, like I said, Sector 4, but we're talking about traffic and the motor unit. Why don't you explain to me what exactly is the motor unit?
Dave, you want to take that one?
There you go. I'll let Dave.
In short, the motor unit is the Sheriff's Office's branch, I guess, to fight traffic enforcement, whether it's parking, whether it's aggressive driving, speeding, stop sign violations, red light, anything that could affect the safety of the community relating to vehicles on the road. It pretty much falls to us to try to make it as safe as possible for everybody. And
so you're out there, like you said, you're going, I don't want to say going after, but you're going after speeders, you're enforcing traffic laws. I'm sure people love it when you pull them over.
Usually the ones we pull over are not loving it. However, frequently while we're on the side of the road, we'll get people honking. So I know that the other people who have been affected by it do appreciate it.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier. You and I went on a ride along, or I rode along with you, and shot some video. If you're interested, go to our Facebook page, go to our YouTube page. Whole video on the traffic unit, on the motor unit, and what you do out there and how you do it. I know we started kind of early that day, early for me. I know you started 6 a.m., Sergeant McDaniel. And tell me kind of what your days usually like, because we did a few different things. We weren't just sort of sitting in one spot. You were kind of all over the county that day.
Yeah, that's right. We are a county-wide unit. We are broken up into individual teams for the different sectors in the county, but we do work all together. And we go and try to hit problem areas, places that we've gotten complaints about, problems that we know that there's a problem with speeding, aggressive driving, when school's in session, the school zones. So yeah, we kind of day to day just plan, hey, this is where our problem area is, and we try to go tackle that.
So, Lieutenant Conner, about the motor unit, it's cars, it's SUVs, it's motorcycles, it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's great. So, we talk about the motor unit, and the motor unit just doesn't also do traffic. So that is one aspect of it. We also do parades. So come around the holiday times, around Thanksgiving and Christmas and so forth. We use our motorcycles in parades because it is a good piece. It's a good showpiece for the Sheriff's Office. It showcases us, and we do enjoy doing the parades. We also do events like with kids. So we go to our community outreach centers, also our Children's Safety Village. Dave and I did one not too long ago out at UCF for the autism awareness. Mm-hmm. And there the kids really enjoy coming up to the motorcycles. They're cleaned up. It's like a fishing lure, right? It draws them in, and then they love getting on the cycles and getting pictures with it. So we enjoy doing that. It's a good piece for us to get community relations with the community. We also do escorts. We do presidential escorts. Well, that's a big thing when they come down here to Central Florida.
And it happens a lot, especially during election time. Either presidents or maybe former presidents or whatever. I'm sure you get sort of tapped for either of them.
We do, and so we get contacted by Secret Service and different things. So they call us, but Orange County is known to have one of the best motor units around. So Secret Service feels very comfortable with having us do the lead on a lot of our escorts and so forth. And they come down, and they'll even tell us that other agencies, they might not be so trusting, but for us, we developed that relationship with I've been here for 27 years and have been involved with motors for at least 15. And on that, they are like, we trust what you do. So that's good. That's good. That says a lot about the motor unit and the name that we've had for a long, long time. We also do other events like Best Foot Forward, talk about crosswalks and so forth.
Yeah,
So
yeah. We put these videos out every now and then. If you're not familiar, somebody will. You can explain it. Let me have you explain it, Lieutenant.
Yeah, so the Best Foot Forward is pretty much your crosswalks, and pretty much pedestrians have the right of way, and we have pedestrians that get hit. But our thing about Best Foot Forward is to educate about what the crosswalk was, and also respecting pedestrians and what the pedestrian violation actually are when they come across and things of that nature. We also have Click It or Ticket. Click It or Ticket is also about the seatbelt. We're talking about seatbelt violations, the safety of the civilians. So there's a lot of things that we do and we're encompassing and we get tasked with as in the traffic section, not just with traffic enforcement, but other events also.
So I'm going to go back to Sergeant McDaniels here. Let's talk about speeding and aggressive driving, because I know that's part of your job and everybody's job, I guess, in the motor unit is to make sure that doesn't happen here in Orange County as best you can. How does that work? Let's say you're driving along I-4 and you see somebody going that you think is fast. I know you have radar. How does that all work? Explain that process to me.
Well, a common aggressive driving up on I-4, because it is a problem up there, would usually be for me. I'm just driving with the flow of traffic in an unmarked car, and you start seeing somebody coming up behind you in the mirror, and they're obviously gaining on you at a good speed, and they're in and out of traffic, and no turn signals coming up behind you. And then once they get up close enough that you can use your radar, you get your speed reading on the radar, identify which vehicle's moving the fastest, and then once they blow your doors off,
which happens
quite frequently, then you have to engage that vehicle and catch up to it. And while you're doing it, also paying attention to drive safely with the other traffic, and you're kind of observing the different violations because it happens so quick. But you're looking for how close are they behind a car? Are they following too close? When they pass cars, are they cutting in front of them? Are they signaling the turns? Those seem to be the biggest ones. Every once in a while, you'll get people passing on the exit lane and then cutting back in, or even driving down the shoulder to cut back in. So those are all just the things that you're looking for out there. And once it's safe to do so, then you conduct your traffic stop, get the lights going, call it out on the radio, and still got to be cognizant of all the other traffic. Most of these people driving this way are all they care about is their car, where they're going, when they're there. But we have the additional responsibility not only to watch out for them, but to watch out for everybody else that we're out on the road with.
And typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's usually not people going, because I think the speed limit there is 70 in most spots, maybe a little lower depending on where in the county you're at. But
most of the highways are actually under 70. The only time you're going to get 70 is like on the turnpike, a little bit on 429 or 417. But most of the roads, like I-4 is 60 the entire stretch.
Well, there you go. I learned something every day.
408.
I'm not going 120 though. I
408
promise.
and 528 also. They go up and down depending on if you're going through some heavier, like the downtown areas. But generally, that 60, 65 is the max speed limit.
But I'm guessing when most people start coming up from behind and going by you, they're not going 67, 68. They're going 80, 90, or 100.
Yeah, usually they're going way over. The law is set up so that different speed categories have different fines associated with them, and I regularly find that the cars that I'm pulling over for driving like this are at that 20 mile an hour over, which is a statutory fine of $279, or even higher, which at 30 it becomes a mandatory court appearance, and we get people 50, 60, 70 over sometimes.
So, Lieutenant Conner, I'm sure you've pulled people over during your 27-year career, especially maybe going even that fast, 90, 100, even more. I mean, what happens in that time? When you walk up to the car, like, what do they say? What does somebody say when they're going that much over the speed limit?
Well, you'd be surprised. So we do have the excuse book, and so a lot of people are, hey, I'm either late for work or I've got to use the bathroom and those kind of things. A lot of people just don't understand or they don't pay attention, especially like for the newer cars. The newer cars are soundproof and so forth. They got the stereo going, and they're just flowing right along the flow of traffic, and then they're getting faster and faster, just not paying attention. So they're distracted driving. So, you walk up there and they don't realize that I was going that fast, or I wasn't paying any attention about how fast the speed limit, the posted speed limit signs, right? And so then you educate them pretty much about, hey, this is your violation, this is what you were doing. And a lot of them are like, well, I apologize, I didn't realize that. And then comes the citation, right? And then it's about selling the citation about, here's why you're receiving it, and so forth. And we do have discretion as far as sometimes giving a break, depending on also on the driving history when you run them and so forth. But it's also like what David said earlier about driving conditions on I-4 or 408. You can't have somebody doing 25, 30 miles over. We're talking about now other people who are following the law Now they could cause a problem when they cut somebody off and so forth. So that leads to issues, and we don't want to have that. So, there comes that part we talk about discretion, but that's what we're here for as far as also the enforcement side. And those tickets aren't, we're talking about sometimes up to $1,000 on some of the tickets for those ones doing 50 or 60 over miles per hour, but it's pretty heavy.
And those ones you have to go to court for. It's not just you pay the fine and you're done. You have to go to court if it's that high, right?
At the 30 mile an hour over, if that's what we write it at, it is a mandatory court appearance. At the 50, at 30 over, I believe the going fine is like $354. You hit 50 over, it jumps up to $1,100.
Wow.
Is what the statutory fine is.
Slow down.
Yeah. And Dave, what's your highest speed that you think we've in the traffic unit that we've I wouldn't say clocked, but actually stopped for us?
I know the fastest that I have stopped is 135.
That's pretty fast.
Right.
In a 70.
That's pretty fast.
And that so in those cars, I mean, we do have typically not too long ago on Memorial Day weekend, we had cars that, and typically a couple of the cars we stopped, you'll see people renting like the Lamborghinis and so forth. They're renting them, and so their whole thing was, we're going to the highway and take off, especially the I-4 express lanes.
Which is only 60 there, by the way.
It's only 60, but people treat it like it's a racetrack,
Uh-huh.
and they get up there and go. But for them, they don't realize that at that speed, it only takes a fraction of a second for something to happen. Next thing they're in the wall. So it's not out there, hey, just leave me alone. I'm out here doing my own thing. But no, we're trying to save everybody, even your own life. No different than the one that ran off of I-4 not too long ago, the overpass, on the 408 overpass on the I-4, and now he's dead. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's about educating, but also with the education comes a little bit of a penalty with it about, hey, this is why we're doing it. It's not just because we're out here writing tickets, but to save your life along with everybody else.
So tell me about the motor unit. Let's say I'm a deputy at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and I'm on patrol, and I want to work in the motor unit. How do I become a member of the OCSO motor unit? Don't all jump in at the same time here. Sergeant McDaniels.
I'll let Dave take that one.
The first step is we post for those positions that are open in-house, and we provide specific requirements, like you have to have your motorcycle endorsement.
So wait, before you go too far, do you have to get that on your own, or do we sort of say, hey, you might not have it, and we'll get you through the class, or how does that work?
Usually you got to get it on your own. And to get an endorsement, the writing is super basic. Then after you have the motorcycle endorsement, we post for it, and you've met the minimum requirements for the time at the agency. We look at discipline and those other things. Then at that point, then you can put in for attending we put on a 24-hour school, because of the skills that we require are so hard that we found that if we put people straight into an 80-hour school, we wasted a lot of time on people who were dropping out. So we established a 24-hour school that the applicants have to go to pass a couple of the three first basics courses that we ride.
And when you say a 24-hour school, is that like on the motorcycle?
On a motorcycle,
okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So I've got my certification, but this is like the advanced course. You're
Correct.
learning other stuff.
You have your endorsement. You could go ride out on the public roadways.
Uh-huh.
But because of what we do, we require a lot higher riding skills. So the 3-day class is 3 8-hour days up at our training range, just riding the basic courses, getting a feel for the motorcycle, seeing if you're able to handle it.
And that's like through cones and
Through cones, yep.
Okay.
It's in a sterile environment, but the maneuvers do get pretty difficult.
Mm-hmm.
After they pass that, then we put on an 80-hour school, which includes the slow speed stuff for handling the motorcycle, and then also a little bit higher speed stuff for the conditions that you'll find actually when you're out riding with traffic and in the weather and people cutting in and out. And we try to train so that we are able to ride safely for our own safety, but also for the public around us while we're doing our job. And then after you get through the 80-hour school, you have to participate in what we call an MTO program, or motor training program, where you're actually riding out with a training officer, doing the job out on the road, doing traffic stops, making sure that you can handle the bike on road, off road, all of that stuff. And then once you've completed that, and we have postings, and there's an interview process even after that to get in. So it's pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good lengthy thing, because it does provide all that additional training to make them safer on the motorcycles.
Because I would guess most deputies know how to pull somebody over in their vehicle. I mean, that's part of the job. But you go through the extensive training of both motorcycles, and I'm sure there's even more, maybe like advanced training, like I said, on just like traffic stops, because that's your job here, or part of your job here in the motor unit.
Yeah, I would say that. So we do as far as training. So in the car, at least you have a structure around you to give you something as far as like a barrier. On the motorcycle, you're out in the elements right then. So on traffic stops, it's yes, it's the same procedure as far as calling them out and so forth, but it's a lot more dangerous because now you're out in the open. If something happens to you, you're looking left to right, especially in the traffic walking up to their car. But also on the flip side of that, when across the nation, as far as violence against officers nowadays, where are we moving to? We don't have any cover. We have a motorcycle. But we do training to help prepare the guys that are on the unit to deal with that situation and to best handle that for a good outcome. But I can tell you now that the 80-hour course, one of the things is the hardest course that is offered here at the sheriff's office.
Really?
I can tell you, and I'll throw it out there.
I see your SWAT.
Yeah, so I had the 2-week boot camp at SWAT, and I tell you, it's even though that's a challenge. I mean, physically, all that kind of stuff, but when I went to motor school, that was probably the most difficult school because mentally and physically, because you're maneuvering that bike back and forth throughout the courses, you're doing break and escape. But the mental side of it. Well, evasive movement. So we have something we train for. Car stops in front of you, or something happens in front of you. Which way you going, left or right? Where's my lane to go to, and so forth. But handling that bike and putting them through the stress courses and things that we do at that 80-hour, it's tasking. And so a lot of people hear that and they get intimidated. And that's what we talk about the 3-day familiarization course. About we do try and put that on. That hey, come out here, get familiar with the bike. Don't be intimidated by it, because when you're riding it and then you're doing the tight 360s or you're doing the cones, it's mentally it's a drain, and so people just get intimidated by that. So they come out for the 3-day course and they like, oh, this is pretty cool. So right now, our unit is down in staffing. We're trying to get people involved and motivated to come out here and feel comfortable around the bike. And that way get them to where, hey, okay, this sounds pretty cool. And then the fun parts of it, it is hot on the bikes, but we also have the cars. But on the flip side of that, we get to do a lot of events and things of that nature, which makes this motor unit one of the prestige units in the agency.
Are most people who come to the motor unit, are they usually people that are into motorcycles anyway? Or is this like a way to sort of get into it? I'm saying, like, did you guys have motorcycles, or did you grow up riding motorcycles?
I rode dirt bikes, which was a bad thing, bad habit to break when I went to motor school, because you're always putting your foot down.
Yeah, and you're trying to jump everybody probably.
Well, not only that, but
good luck jumping these bikes.
yeah, you can't. So
what kind of motorcycles do we have here at the sheriff's office?
We have Harley Road Kings, and we've had those for a very, very long time. I think we've had I know for 27 years that we've had Harley Road Kings. They're a great riding bike. They're not some of the BMWs and things that other agencies have, but they just have that rumble to them, that look. It's history, right? But I know some other bikes are a lot faster and so forth, but these bikes do get up to a certain speed. I mean, we so during our POTUS details, we do have to get up to a high speed to pass and do different things and leapfrog. But I can tell you, so in an event that really, for me, from a respect level for this, was my second day in the motor school. I rolled my Harley.
Really?
Right. And so because I get a little hot-headed, I was following the leader, and we were doing what's called a breeze out, where you're just going to get away from the cones, go relax a little bit, and follow the instructor. And long and short is that I got a little too cocky and came into a turn, and wherever you look, you go. And I looked at the curb, and my crash bar grabbed a hold of the curb and grabbed the bike and rolled through me high side. And luckily, I landed on the concrete just correct on my butt, and didn't break anything. Tore my pants up, rolled the bike, did $6,000 worth of damage to the bike. But from that day on, I was like, a lot of respect, right?
Oh yeah.
But that happens, I've seen friends
still let you in the motor unit, huh?
They did what's called the White Boot Award. So whoever I got the white boot. So whoever goes to that school and has because you will drop your bike, you're going to drop the bike left and right. We put hoses on them on the things to help minimize some of the scratch and stuff for the cosmetic look. But the White Boot Award is whoever has an incident,
okay.
Right? I wouldn't say it's not a crash or a wreck. It's just an incident.
Okay.
So I got the White Boot Award, but I've also seen my friends break legs, break ankles, and so forth, because you do have a habit of turning, right? And the natural thing is put your foot down.
Oh yeah.
And so anyway, they learn the hard way not to put their foot down, and that is part of the intimidating part. But the instructors that we have that come out there are MTOs, and our red shirts that we come out there, they're phenomenal at what they do, and so they'll coach you through what you need to do. And if you listen to them, it is a good time and so forth. You just got to relax, listen to what they're telling you. and you'll have no issues. But unfortunately, no different with cars. There are accidents. You can break an ankle coming out of your car and so forth. But on the bikes, it's unforgiving if you do happen to make a mistake.
Yeah. Going back to traffic stops, Sergeant McDaniels, part of the video that I put up on our Facebook and our YouTube, if you want, go check that out. You and I also did something. Well, you did. I just watched step out traffic stops. Explain what that is.
Well, everybody knows what a regular traffic stop is in the car. So a step out is where we position ourselves in a place where we can observe a violation, whether it's a stop sign, speeding, whatever the case may be, seat belts. And instead of getting in our cars and pulling somebody over, we step out into the lane of traffic and get the driver's attention with whistles or bright vests, and we conduct a traffic stop using hand signals to pull them to the side of the road where we've already set up and are ready to write our tickets.
So what's the purpose of that? Is it safer to do it that way, or is it just, we're all working together? Because normally it's like 2 or 3 or 4 people working in one spot, right?
I think the main purpose behind it is to keep things moving. You don't have to go reset a car. You don't have to go get back into traffic or loop around. And it just makes it so that we can get out of the road a little bit easier as opposed to taking up a lane of traffic when we're making a traffic stop.
Yeah, and on that same note, so they're they pick an area, they're staged. That's one thing about the motorcycles, you can hide. You're concealed.
Smaller.
Yeah, you're concealed, and which allows us to go to our traffic complaint areas and handle those without having a squad car. People tend to send a squad car.
They slow down.
Way ahead, right? And that's great. That serves a purpose. But for us, it's also we want to be in there and enforce the complaints that are coming to us. So having those bikes allows us to get linear. Put them in the shade, obviously. A good motor man finds a good shade tree. And then also do our step outs and having an area that we can do multiple citations versus having to get out and so forth. Now we also do chase downs, which the guys do on the motorcycles and also on the cars. But in most of our areas, we'll do step outs. And we were the vests, the whistles. There's protocol as far as what we follow per policy.
So you mentioned traffic complaints. Explain what that is. So I assume with either the step outs or wherever you are enforcing traffic laws, it's not random. It's not, well, I mean, I guess it could be, but I assume it's not random every day. Like, all right, we're just going to go here because we think there might be people. There's sort of a method behind where you set up each day, correct?
Yeah, there definitely is a method behind it. I personally think it's unproductive and a waste of time just to set up in a place where there's no cars coming through or everybody's already doing what's required of them. Mm-hmm. So obviously we use the complaints, whether it comes from community meetings, commissioners' offices, 311, the sheriff's office webpage. There's a lot of different ways to make those complaints that we get. And we go out and we assess whether the violation is something that happens that we can take enforcement action on, or if it's just a once in a blue moon type of a thing.
Because you don't want to have 6-7 people out there and 2 cars go by.
Correct, and it helps us know how many resources we need to put there and that kind of thing. So, yeah, we definitely don't look at it as a random thing, but we definitely put some time into looking at does the road support this complaint? If somebody's complaining that the speeds are 80 miles an hour, but there's huge speed humps a quarter mile apart, it's kind of hard for those cars to do that. So we'll pick a different spot that'll actually be a little bit more wise use of time.
Are there certain spots around the county that are sort of known problem areas that you kind of have to go back to periodically, whether it's once a month or once a week or whatever? You're like, all right, got to go back to Colonial and Hiawassee or wherever. Pick a street. I don't care. Are there just certain areas where people tend to speed more?
Well, yeah. So as we mentioned earlier about the aggressive driving, as you were out there with Dave earlier. And so we always have the 408, 414, I-4, Turnpike, different things. So those are always like for our aggressive driving. That's where people think it's like NASCAR out there, right? Mm-hmm. Putting other people in danger, high rates of speed. But that's one of the number one complaints here in Orange County is traffic.
Yeah.
So
before you go farther, Sergeant McDaniels and I talked about this a little bit as well when I was on the ride along. And also every single time I've talked to a different captain at one of our sectors, I always assume that the biggest complaint's going to be, drugs or guns or whatever. It's always traffic. Yeah,
traffic. So people speeding through the neighborhoods, that's causing danger when they see the kids out riding their bike and so forth. So cars kill, right? I mean, that's a big object moving at high rate of speed. Mm-hmm. And that's one of our biggest things because we're talking about the quality of life issues. So when we talk about speeding, we talk about our complaints coming in. They come in, it goes out to the sergeants. They put a game plan together for the next day. We go and handle those complaints as a squad. We divvy up. We go like to the sector. So we work a sector a day. And they go and they divvy it up as far as here's our complaints. They'll go in there and then they'll clear those complaints out. But those complaints do filter back in. And that's okay. That's what we're here for. But we have a variety of county-wide. And we do try and pick and choose our high priority. And then we'll pick everything else off also as we're going throughout the day. But people can call right back in and we will get another complaint. That's okay. That's what we're here for. But county-wide, we're talking about over 1,000 square miles, 2,600 miles of county road. So it's a lot. And we try and get to it when we can.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to make is, after this video went up online, and we get this all the time whenever we post stuff about, slow down, don't speed, whatever. People say, well, there's speeders in my neighborhood. There's speeders in my area, and you're never there. Well, I think that's a good point. Like you said, the county's 1,000 square miles, lots of miles of roads. Like in your unit is only the motor unit is only as big as it is. Like you can only be so many places. Like I'm sure you would love to be all over the county every single day stopping speeders, but it's just not reality. You just can't do that.
Yeah, so we know the sector captains know about the complaints, and with our unit being the size that we are, we have 18 full time, and then we also have currently we just upped it up to 30 cross trainers, which come out and assist us, but. Even with that, we have the sector captains who have people in their sectors that also have radars. They also work complaints, but the priority is their primary calls coming in for service, that in progress call, that burglary or auto theft or robbery, some of that nature. So they can try and do what they can with traffic, but for the most part, it falls back on us. And we hit it hard when we were out there, but there's just a lot. I mean, there's a lot of complaints.
So touching on that a little bit, Sergeant McDaniels, and we've talked about this a little bit. I'm sure you get people when you pull them over and they'll say, why don't you go out and catch real criminals? I mean, why don't you go get people that are dealing drugs? And so what do you say to people like that? I mean, that say, speeding, I'm just going a little bit over the speed limit or a lot. Why don't you go out and find some real crime?
Yeah, that's an age-old excuse as far as why traffic enforcement's not very important. And for me, it's a little bit more personal because I've seen the side of it where the traffic speeding and the aggressive driving, following too close, has caused accidents. And even if somebody doesn't die, the injuries from that are going to affect somebody the rest of their life or significantly affect them for a period of time. So, for me, I don't engage in that discussion because I frankly think about it as just they're being ignorant. It hasn't affected them yet. And those guns and drugs, those are the flashy things that make the news headlines. But we have so many traffic accidents that are completely avoidable if people would follow the rules. And whether that's property damage, which affects our insurance rates, whether that's injuries, that now those are medical bills that affect our insurance rate. This is an issue that affects everybody. Just because it's not as flashy as the guns and the drugs. To me, I did that when I was a little younger. Now I'm a little older and thinking a little differently. But yeah, I usually don't even engage in that. I tell them I'm here dealing with them, and I'm not stopping somebody doing 8, 9 over. These are people who are doing, like we talked about, 20, 30, 40, 50 over. So
yeah, and I like to think that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like the agency can, and we do. We can deal with the guns and the drugs. That's their somebody's job. That they're in a unit that does that. But we can also pull speeders over as well. Like we can do both. It's not one or the other.
Correct. They want to deflect to something else as opposed to address what is an issue right here on the road.
Yeah, and I'm sure this never comes up in conversation because you don't have time for this, but I think a lot of times about like my mom driving. Like I wouldn't want somebody going 100 miles an hour and going around my mom on I-4 because like that's very, very dangerous. And all it takes is somebody to just change a lane and not see somebody coming 100, 110, 120 coming up behind because like you said, that's fast. And if you just don't see them coming up, they can wreck into you. And then not only are they going to get injured, but the person who's just driving along the speed they should, I mean, they can get injured as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the more I've gotten into looking at traffic and stuff and looking at just some of the studies, I found it interesting, like the stuff we don't even think about. At 60 miles an hour, your car is going approximately 66 feet a second. That's a lot of distance. And then you put into there the time it takes to see a threat, the time it takes to respond to that threat, and then the dynamics of the car to actually stop. At 60 miles an hour, it's taken over a football field for that whole process to happen. And that is so much space that you see these cars out on the road, they don't give each other that space. To me, it's amazing we don't have more accidents the way that people are driving. Another study that I found pretty interesting was talking about those lines out on the highway. They did a study, and people estimated that they're about 2 feet long. And I can see it, like you're driving fast and the angle from the car.
You mean like the lines that divide?
The white divider lines up
all
on
right.
the interstate. Those lines are actually 10 feet long.
Wow.
And the space between the lines are supposed to be 30 feet long. So between line to line, that's 40 feet. And you're blinking out on the interstate, and those are just flying by you. And that's just distance that if you're not paying attention, or if somebody does something foolish and they're driving that fast, they're taking that distance away from you, and you can't respond fast enough. And that's unfortunately 100% avoidable.
So, Lieutenant Conner, I want to shift real quick because I know we don't have a ton of time here, to the presidential motorcades and the what do you call them?
POTUS details.
POTUS details.
Escorts.
Okay, escorts. That's right,
there you
escorts. Yeah. So tell me about that. Like, do you train for that? I assume during like the motor unit training, and like you said, you just get a call one day from the Secret Service says, President's coming to town. You guys got to be ready.
Yeah, so that usually is a workup done through our intel. So they usually get the intel call, then we have a meeting, and it's usually a couple weeks out. Sometimes it could be a little bit shorter, up to a week. But then they come in. We have an outlay where he's going to be staying at, where he's landing at, where he's coming in. So we have our en route.
And generally, I would assume it's the Orlando International Airport they land at, or is the executive airport, or could be either.
Both.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, could be anywhere.
Yeah,
anywhere
we've had him.
Anywhere the president wants to land, I guess. President can land.
I've had him also where he's unexpected. He's been somewhere here in Florida and land a helicopter somewhere,
okay.
and all of a sudden we've been called. Hey, we're doing this. However, we train for that. We do our PPD training every how many years is it, Dave? Right?
We try to do it every year.
Yeah, every year, and that's with multiple agencies because we use a lot of. I mean, that's very staffing intensive as far as that. So with all the motorcycles, so we have that and we train, and it's usually a 2 to 3 day school, correct?
Correct. Usually 2 days once a year is what we try to do.
Yeah. So with that comes in. So now you're talking about the routes, the blocking, leapfrog. Making sure that we're working with them about how we're going to run the route, where we're going to have our tail and lead, and so forth.
Because some people block like you said, they block the intersection, so the car, the president, or the president's car can go through. They're not stopping at lights.
Right. We're also because we're owning that highway. So when they leave or depart from whether it's at the airport, going to their venue, or from the venue back to the airport, we own that highway. So everything's shut down. And also along that, so when they're riding along the route, we have extra bikes because somebody might be broken down that wasn't seen earlier. We have to put a bike with that because with the president, he runs with his own CAT team, like his own SWAT team, and we also have our SWAT team attached to him. So there's a lot of moving parts involved with that. And so anyway, the motor unit, we help facilitate the needs as far as making sure it's a safe lane to travel to wherever he needs to go. And also if something happens, how could we facilitate helping him out if something bad happens as far as a shooting situation.
Yeah.
But fortunate for us, we haven't had that. We haven't had any of those issues. But that's why they rely on us because we do a phenomenal job. The guys in the unit do a great job doing the workup and working hand in hand with the other agencies here in Central Florida. And that's why they like coming here to Orlando.
Is it only presidents that can get that type of detail? Or like, what if, let's say the Queen of England came to the United States and wanted to come to Orlando. Would you do that for another dignitary?
On a lower scale. So the president gets the full package. Then we have also his wife come in, also former vice presidents or presidents come in.
Okay.
They don't get the full package all the time. The president of the United States gets the full package.
Really? Okay. But former presidents might get like a lower version of it?
On a lower scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
we've done it on a lower scale, and I'm not sure what the...
Yeah, I believe we would pretty much tie it to what the Secret Service provides coverage for. So if the Secret Service is involved, then usually we get involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good to know. Good to
Yeah.
know.
Hey, I want to circle back real quick on that,
Okay.
John. One thing so we talk about the enforcement side about people asking, hey, go do something else. One of the things that people don't understand is that when we're also doing proactive enforcement in neighborhoods,
Yes.
people see the lights, they see us in the area. When bad guys are scouting out a neighborhood to come in and possibly do something, either whether they're breaking into your house, your cars, they see the guys out in motors, like, oh, cops are in the area, right? So proactive law enforcement on the motorcycles during traffic is a good thing. It also is a preventative measure, right, for the bad guys looking, and they're like, oh, man, they're everywhere. And that's one thing that we have the luxury of doing when we come into sections, that We throw a lot of bikes in the area, and it looks like they're like county's here, let's move somewhere else, right? And that's the whole thing. We want to be proactive versus reactive.
So I'm going to ask you a question. If anybody listening has made it this far into the podcast, this is the secret now. You're gonna tell some secrets here. Is there any way that somebody can get out of a ticket when they get pulled over? Is there an excuse that you can use?
No.
Yeah, I would say with me, no.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, there are some hardliners, right?
Yes.
And that needs to be done, right? There are, but then there's also some that are a little up in age and have been in for a while. That shows sometimes a little bit more discretion. But I can also write. And I'm talking about myself. I also will write tickets. I will write tickets, but I do show a little bit more leniency sometimes.
Okay. Not Sergeant McDaniels over here.
I would-
He's a
I-
stickler.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. I think if you had a grandma, like I actually stopped an 87-year-old grandmother last week on Tilden, and she was just so polite, and she was actually telling her grandson in the passenger seat, "Now watch your speed" and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, "Ma'am, I actually got you." I showed her the rate, and she's like, "Oh, how
fast was she going? Do you remember?
Sonny, I don't remember." I'm like, "Ma'am," so I gave her a cursing warning.
Okay.
I could
All
not
right.
write her a citation.
Yeah. Not Sergeant McDaniels.
No comment.
He gets out of his car, he's writing tickets.
I know when I started driving, I had to learn the hard way, and it took 3 tickets and a lot of money and some insurance stuff when I first started driving to slow me down, and I've changed my ways because of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, there you go. So the moral of the story is slow down. No matter what, slow down. You're
Yeah.
gonna get there. Arrive alive. All those things you can say. Just slow the speed here in Orange County.
And don't think that just because you're only doing 3 or 4 miles an hour over speed limit, you can't be stopped. A speed limit is a limit, no different than a credit card limit, right? You don't go over your credit card limit. Well, you're not supposed to. So that's the whole point. Oh, you know, I know you guys can't stop me for this. No, we can. You're over the speed limit, and that's where it comes to play.
All right. Well, slow down.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you guys.
All right.
I appreciate it, and thanks for listening to Behind the Star. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Behind the Star. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Also, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Jon Busdeker, and this is Behind the Star.